Hello and welcome to 1000 Actually Fun Books that everyone should read. And today we are reviewing Robert Ludlum's book, The Bourne Identity. It's the first of his Bourne books. There's a whole 20 of them. There's a huge number of them. And of course there were some movies made out of them. This was written in 1980. And the movie came out, I want to say it was 2001. So these are old enough. I am going to tell you, I'm going to say spoilers about this book. I'm going to give away the big secret, but it's old enough. I mean, you probably already know about it anyway. Okay, so I'm going to give you a short summary of the plot. It starts out with a man being basically fished out of the ocean because he's been shot all to pieces, and when he wakes up, he doesn't remember anything. So classic case of memory loss there, of total amnesia, and so he starts trying to put his life back together, trying to figure out. His only clue is something, a bank account that was embedded in his skin that he goes and chases down, and he discovers a whole bunch of mystifying things about himself. He kind of ends up concluding that maybe he's an assassin, and that in the course of doing this, lots of weird things begin to happen. People basically start chasing him down and trying to kill him, and he's not sure why. So, and here's where the spoilers come in. The further in he goes, the more convinced he is that he is actually an assassin named Kane, or at least that's his nickname. He thinks his real name is Jason Bourne, and that he is trying to track down and replace another assassin named Carlos. And so he and Carlos are battling it out. Carlos is hunting him, and he's hunting Carlos, and they are trying to kill each other throughout the course of this. And at the very end of the book, you find out along with Jason that he's not really an assassin. He's actually a CIA operative that's been embedded as taking credit for kills that he hasn't necessarily taken, and building up a reputation trying to hunt down this real evil assassin, Carlos. And because he had amnesia and so wasn't checking in with his superiors are like, I don't know what's up with that. Maybe he's gone rogue. Maybe he's turned against us. Maybe we should hunt him down now too. So it seems like everybody's hunting him down. Okay, so that's the plot in a nutshell, the whole thing, the whole book. And now I'm going to tell you, big fat warning. If you haven't read the book, if you've only seen the movie but haven't read the book yet, I wasn't expecting it, but the girl in this, the love interest, it's not a very pleasant start with her in the story. When Jason Bourne gets a hold of her, he kind of slaps her around, takes her hostage. Not a nice way to treat a civilian. And she ends up being raped, sexually assaulted in the course of this, not by Jason, but by one of the antagonists. And it is depicted it was shocking because I wasn't expecting that. I had no idea that was coming, and I did not appreciate reading that. It wasn't depicted horribly, and it was very realistic in the circumstances, like, yes, this would actually happen if this was all, real. And it wasn't very graphic, but it was definitely there. There isn't necessarily a very realistic resolution to that, because it seems like there's a brief mention of, oh, this is horrible, but there's no lasting trauma for the female character. It was just like, well, that stunk, and then moving on. And our hero does have the totally correct and appropriate response of, disgust and kill the guy, kind of thing. But it deserves a warning. For anybody who just kind of is not expecting that, or if that could be traumatic for you, be aware. That's in this book. Okay, so beyond that, so things I liked about this book, one of which would be all the action. It does have a lot of chases and shoot-ups and, fist fights and lots of intense, high adrenaline, high octane scenes in this story. Basically from the very beginning where, you have Jason being exploding, but not quite, but in a firefight that gets him where he loses his amnesia. He loses his memory. Everything, it isn't action after action after action. It can get a little bit slower in the middle, and that's actually one of the things I didn't like, is kind of the middle got a little bit slower. But for the most part, there's lots of continuous explosions. So I did like that part. I liked the revelation of what's going on with Jason, because it comes to you as the reader at the same time that it's coming to the character for the most part. And it's kind of revealed in bits and pieces, and I thought the author did a good job with leading you down the path of Jason Bourne is an evil assassin before it flips the script to saying, no, he's actually a good guy. I think the author did a good job of setting up why it's really obvious that he's a bad guy, an assassin, before it kind of reveals like the underpinnings behind that and why it's not true. So that was really good. So the whole thing about his circumstances, I thought it was a good thing. It's obviously tropey, but it worked really well in this case. Okay, things I didn't care for too much. One of which would be some of the slowed things. Sometimes it felt a little repetitive on some conversations and conversations, especially with the girl, where Jason is always kind of like, oh no, I'm a horrible person. The girl is always constantly, no, it's probably all a lie. You'll be good. You are a good person. And that actually did feel a little bit repetitive on that. And speaking of the girl and Jason, I didn't care for their relationship. It felt superficial, maybe. Like they're two traumatized people and they have kind of an unhealthy clinging to each other that didn't really work for me. Obviously this book is not a romance. And so the relationship building is not the focus in this author's, repertoire, and it shows. Okay, so it's just two people thrust together and they get together, and I'm sitting there going, that poor girl. Because Jason literally hit her at the beginning of it, and then, like 48 hours later, she's like, oh, I love you. And I'm like, okay. That it just doesn't feel very healthy. And so that relationship with that horrible, foundation, and obviously all this huge action-packed thing, it just didn't work for me. That's just me. I like actually, some realism in my relationships there, and that one didn't have it. Another thing would be, so the author likes his dialogue a lot. And that's one of the strengths of the character. So the character, Jason Bourne, he is, his big selling point, why he does such a good job as pretending to be this assassin for several years, is that he can talk with other people and basically say what they're expecting, or say things in such a way that they will reveal information. So he may be like talking to somebody and he will say things in such a way that the other character is like, well, obviously you know what I'm talking about. And Jason's like, well, yes, but that's not relevant. Tell me anyway, kind of, thing. And they're like, well, and then they just kind of blurt it out. It's not quite like that. The author does a good job with that. But the author doesn't, I feel like, do a good job in breaking up its dialogue. So the author has like chunks of just dialogue, and it doesn't break it up with what I would like to see, which is kind of like the little emotional cues. Somebody looked to the left, they scratched their chin, they raised an eyebrow, they squinted, just all those physical indications of that. The author doesn't do the body language. Lots and lots of dialogue, but he doesn't do the body language. And that bothered me. It was kind of irritating because the only emotion you're getting from an entire, several pages of dialogue is, exclamation points on what they're saying, kind of thing. Oh, I am so upset, kind of thing, exclamation point. And so I felt like the emotion there, I mean, you could follow it, but I think it would have been a lot better if there'd been those physical indicators of you're missing half the conversation when you can't see what the person is looking like, right? And that in the book didn't convey those things well at all. So that was one of the biggest things I didn't like about the book, honestly, was the massive blocks of dialogue without the emoting that you expect. The book does have, it's not quite a cliffhanger, but it does have a little bit of an abrupt ending, and it's clearly set up for a sequel. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a positive thing. I would have liked a little bit better resolution it doesn't feel like a good, standalone book. It kind of did some resolution on some things, but yeah, it was clearly just set up to have a sequel. So I think originally it was supposed to be a trilogy, but I'm not sure. It may have been, that was the plan, but it was really successful, and so the author just kept going. So I don't know if there's ever any really good resolution ending at any book. I don't know. The author died in 2001. I thought that was just an interesting piece of trivia. So the author died in 2001. I think that's the same year that the movie came out, the first movie. So I don't know whether the author ever saw the first movie or any of the subsequent movies. He never saw those, which I thought was, that's kind of sad. I thought the movies were pretty good. I will say that this book, if you've seen the movie, you will probably be able to read this book with all of the various scenes going on it and feel like it's a completely different story. It really doesn't feel like the movie followed the book, hardly at all. It had the same premise of the amnesia and, the bank scene right at the beginning when he's learning his name, and that's about it. I guess they also had the girl. But if you've seen the movie, you could read the book with totally fresh eyes going, wow, that didn't happen. Oh, that didn't happen. That didn't happen. And there were a bunch of things in the movie that didn't happen in the book either. So that was kind of, I guess, this can be good or bad depending on your expectations and desires of how that falls out. Okay, my last thing that I didn't love, and this is just me being kind of nitpicky, was Jason Bourne himself. The character, I like my heroes to be really smart and clever. And there are a couple of moments where he does some things that come across as clever, setting up a trap or whatever. But for the most part, he didn't really come across as all that, highly intelligent or really like somebody who's totally gonna get the best of all of his opponents. And I will say that the girl ended up getting a lot of the solving problems things, trying to figure out how to get his money from the bank. She figured out how to do the whole thing. He didn't have any clue how to do it properly. Or there were a couple other things like that. He was our hero was more reactionary, really, than more of a plotter. He did, like I say, do some things. So to me, I was expecting a little bit more likability in my hero. And it wasn't that I disliked him, because I liked him, but I didn't love him as a character. I wasn't like, wow, I'm totally, in love with this character. I really want to read more about him. Instead, it was more like, I like the character. But I think I liked the movie character better. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Overall, though, I liked the book. I thought the author did a good job for a classic kind of action book. I'd recommend it. I'm putting it on my 1,000 fun books list as one of the books. I probably will eventually read some sequels. Not anytime soon, though. But I like it enough that if I got the opportunity to read more of it, I would. So I give it a thumbs up. Give it 2 thumbs up. So that's it for the Bourne Identity. On to part 2. My next book is one you've probably never heard of. It is called Kane by Dick Wybrow. I think that's how you pronounce that. So I picked it up because I saw a really brief excerpt, summary, basically just this thing on the front. It says, "Bitten by a man, a wolf becomes human. Now he's seeking a way to return to his pack." And so it's reverse it's a reverse werewolf. The series, it's part of a series, is called not Werewolf, but Wolfware. And I thought that just sounded like a hilarious premise of a wolf being bitten by a human and turning into a human. I don't know yet whether it's like he turns into a human periodically or he's stuck as a human or what. But the idea sounds really funny to me. So if the author manages to do a good tongue-in-cheek type of story, then I think that would be very fun. So that's going to be my next book that I'm going to do. It's obviously a fantasy, nothing, I don't know whether it's going to be a fantasy comedy, which is what I'm hoping for, but it could be a fantasy action or something else, maybe mystery. I don't know. So that's going to be my next one, and I hope you will join me. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.